What's going on, everybody? Voidlego here, back for a brand new episode of Chaos Head Noah. Last time on, Takumi still had no will to live, but he almost gets it by talking to Nanami. But as soon as he tries to hug his dear sister, she disappears, for she was a mere delusion, which just sends him spiraling down even more. And he heads to Scramble Crossing in order to go to this quote unquote festival so he can finally die by someone's hand. Meanwhile, Remy is still dealing with the CEO and trying to save Nanami, but it's too late for Nanami. She sees Remy as the enemy, perhaps by the influence of Noah too, perhaps by the influence of the CEO. Who knows by this point? But something breaks within Remy, or Nanami uses her Gigwomaniac power, which is to send Remy into her mind and showcase her past failings. We cut back to Takumi as he goes to Scramble Crossing, ready to die. Hundreds of cameras there, all asking questions about being the Esper boy and whatnot. Eventually, people start just fighting each other since the GE rate is so spiked up and such, but Takumi doesn't care. Eventually, Shogun comes, or should I say, quote in quotations, comes face to face with Takumi and finally talks to him straight on, and, it confirms the truth to Takumi that he is a creation of Shogun, that he was created in order to fight Nozomi, in order to destroy the Noah that the real Takumi, aka Shogun, had accidentally made the equation for. And so he felt like it was his duty to create something in order to fight back because his physical body is just too weak and frail. But there was someone else in the hospital that needed help from Shogun, and that was Remy herself. Like Shogun, Remy was broken. Her mental state was completely gone. Her ego completely gone. She had to rebuild herself, and Shogun helped her with becoming who she is now, which is why she has such a deep connection to both Shogun and Takumi, as she feels like she has to protect the one that supported her all this time, which was Shogun. Which it does it puts into perspective why she did all those things. Now it really does, of why she was so harsh towards Takumi, because she was kind of like that. She thought of herself as a delusionary existence, this figure of herself now, the bright-eyed, schoolgirl with pink hair, is merely a reformation of what was left of her before, probably due to the experiments that were done on her by Nozomi with their testing on Noah 2 and such. But after that, Takumi thinks and thinks about finally wanting to save Remy. Even if her feelings were fake towards him, he still feels love towards Remy. And so, he finally builds up the courage to finally get out his Discord. And with that, he gains all the memories of all the scenes or vignettes we've had throughout this entire game. He kind of gains the power of God's gaze, which is probably what Shogun has as a Gigwomaniac, is the fact he can see through other people's perspectives. So Takumi gets everyone's perspectives, from Yua, from Ban, from Suwa, from pretty much everybody at that very moment. And he goes into action, cuts down the lackeys of Nozomi with their bags and such, and he is able to confront Hazuki, the nurse, and he finally figures out that Hazuki is actually Grim this entire time. Now, this came as a shock to me, a gigantic shock. But somebody commented down below last time about something you can see to notice that she is Grim. And that is the whole first decision in the game, which is Grim asking what Takumi is attracted to, swimsuits or glasses. And I chose glasses. First time we meet Hazuki, she has glasses on, therefore I got the achievement. And I was confused at the time of like, why the hell did I get this achievement for a character that wears glasses? I don't know. But as soon as I saw that comment, I'm like, oh my god, of course. That makes so much more sense. But this brings up an interesting question. If Grim, or Hazuki I should say, changed her appearance to fit into Takumi's presence, then does that mean Hazuki has feelings for Takumi? Like, she changed her appearance in order to fit into his preferences. Yet, what we see is that she was the one to commit the first New Gen murder and the brain surgery New Gen murder. She's responsible for 2 of those murders. She's fucking quite crazy. But what if she wasn't always that? I could just write her off as, oh, she's a crazy nurse, and the reason why she did this was because she got off on it. Like, easy just, like, swipe. But I don't think this game is like that. I don't feel like this game takes the easy route with characters. I think Hazuki is simply yet another victim of Noah 2. Now, why would Nozomi try to create these new gen murders is probably because it causes hysteria within the public. The more hysteria you get into the public, the more you're able to influence them with news, media, stories, or whatever else. It's the perfect fallacy of how do we test out this new machine that can alter perceptions of reality? Well, you're going to have to get a test group for that, or a control group for that. Well, let's take the city of Shibuya, drive them into a hysteria with this series of insane murders with unbelievable corpses, like completely mutilated to the nth degree, and spread it like fire, so this hysteria can encompass all of Shibuya, so we can control them, control their perspective by influencing the news, influencing all of these things until they finally get the perfect breaking point, which is the Scramble Crossing quote-unquote festival, right? Where everybody just goes fucking nuts and just starts beating each other up for no reason. Because the G rate is so increased by that point, the moon is so high in the sky, it's the perfect opportunity to control them, to send them into pure chaos. And so, Takumi, using his powers, displays her memories on the big screens, and she kills herself over it while everybody else kicks her bodies, and now we're here, and how the hell is this going to continue? I have no idea, but let's get right into it, shall we? I was standing atop a body of water, incredibly clear, transparent water. It was shallow, reaching only my ankles, but it was not cold. Intermittently, the waves whispered in my ears. I was tightly grasping the handles of a wheelchair. Oh. Shogun. No, the real Nishijou Takumi was right before me, his head adorned with his knitted cap. He sat ever so slightly hunched forward in his wheelchair. There wasn't a single thing surrounding us. Neither shells buried in the sand, nor seabirds elegantly soaring through the sky. Nothing so expressively emulative of the sea could be seen. There were no signs of life, only the blue sea and the crystal clear sky. The terrain was completely flat all around me, with the horizon stretching as far as the eye could see. This place was not the real world. Huh. Oh shit. Together with the sound of breaking waves, I heard Shogun's voice. From where I was standing, I couldn't see his expression. The tone of his voice didn't carry any particular feeling of lamentation. In reality, his words felt like they were simply casual, passing remarks. Small, wrinkled, and withered away, all of his hair had fallen out. Oh? Damn. Was he aging prematurely? That illness is supposed to be rare, affecting only 1 out of 8 every 8 million people. The gruesome scene etched into my memories began to rise to the surface. Huh. So we did cause the bus accident. Wow. Contradictions.
粒子とともに追生成される反粒子はディソードにストックされていくんだ。反粒子は数学的に言えば過去へ向かうものだから。ストックすればするほどギガロマニアックスには現在の状態とのズレが発生し、やがてその矛盾により存在としての自己崩壊へ至る。
As he spoke, Shogun didn't move an inch in his wheelchair. What was he looking at? Could he even see it all? Ah, which is why Remy said not to use our delusions. Yeah, okay.
どうして僕みたいな肝タのヘタレ野郎を作ったの？もっと強くて行動的でかっこいいイケメンにすればよかったのに。人を一人、しかもギガロマニアックスの力を使える人間を生み出すのは簡単なことじゃなかった。君を生み出したことで1年近く昏睡しちゃったくらいだ。
Damn.
僕は未完成だったってわけ。だからこそ君はとても人間らしい。
Makes you so very human. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's how you make great characters. It really is. You gotta make... I feel like that's an important rule to set for yourself. If you want to make a great character, make a character who is incomplete.
フォローしなくてもいい。本心だよ。
That clicked my tongue. I really did hate this guy.
リミにはいつも力を使うなって怒られたよ。彼女は君を助けたいんでしょう。でも僕はリミの忠告に従うわけにはいかない。 今の危機的状況は僕の IR2 がきっかけなんだから。
IR2. That strange scribble on the back of my essay.
IR2 はある科学者の手に留まり、やがてのぞみテクノロジー社によって研究が始められた。
Wait a minute, now I'm just thinking about it. What the hell is the connections between this game and 100 Line? We got fucking Takumi and now Nozomi. I just connected those two fucking together. Ay ay ay.
それがプロジェクトノア。言ってみれば人工的にギガロマニアックスの能力を発生させる装置。僕が計画に気づくことができたのはリンと出会ったからなんだ。彼女がひどい拷問を受けていたのはそのプロジェクトの一環だった。
Shit.
ノアのシステムを効率化するために必要だったのがコード3。ギガロマニアックスが力を使う過程で放出する特殊なノウハウのこと。それを手に入れるためにのぞみの社長ノーゼはリミに過酷な拷問を加えた。
Jesus.
強烈な負の感情を抱くときギガロマニアックスは力に覚醒し理想度を獲得するからね。
Once again, I remembered Senna's words.
バイオリズムの上昇によって中脳変影系ニューロンのドーパミンが過剰分泌されたときディソードは現れる。それは危機的な状況や興奮、悲しみ、憎しみ、笑いなど人それぞれだ。ドーパミン分泌量が多ければそれだけ観測しやすくなる。
君が僕にちょっかいをかけてきたのもそのため。
君を覚醒させるためにだ。
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. To get Takumi to awaken.
ごめん。
Remy and I weren't the only ones. There were others who had undergone severe mental or physical torture because of Project Noah. Luis, Senna, Kazupi, and even Nanami. Cool trials have been weighed out for all of them, all so they could become gigomaniacs.
IR2 から生み出されたノア2は僕が自分の手で止めなくちゃならない。でも僕はこんな体だ。満足に動くこともできない。それに僕のコードサンプルを欲しがる望みから狙われるようにもなっちゃうんだよ。
Oh. That was to say nothing of how he was hospitalized at AH Tokyo General Hospital, place which had hidden ties in his only group.
だから身を隠さなくちゃいけなかった。
幻の病室のアミーチュンか。
あそこに入ってこられたのはリミだけだったよ。僕は身動きが取れなくなって、それで
僕を作ったのか。
Shogun weakly nodded.
リミには君を消すように何度も言われたんだ。命を削る行為だからやめろって。でも僕に残された命は長くないから力を使わなくたってあまり差はないんだよね。
His voice was deeply serene. He had a certain sense of wiseness to him. Perhaps it was one you could only get from living out your days under a death sentence.
それに君が覚醒して力を使えるようになれば僕の命は持たないだろうから。
Oh, shit.
僕と君は一心同体っていうこと。
そうだね。
Huh.
でも一つだけ約束。もう妄想はしないね。タクの妄想力はとっても強いから 妄想をすればするほど本物のあなたの命が削られていっちゃうんだ。
Yep. If I try to keep my promise to Remy, I couldn't go help her. Even if I could, I wouldn't be able to do a thing. It wouldn't matter what I tried. They turned the tables on me in an instant.
君の命はあとどれぐらい持つ？
きっと今日か明日までじゃないかな。
そこまで。
Jeez. I was stunned. I didn't expect him to have so little time left.
僕が覚醒しちゃったから。
気にしなくていいよ。君の覚醒は僕にとって本望だから。
君が死んだら僕はどうなる？
Yeah.
君は僕と一心同体であると同時にリアルブートされたことによって現実の人間になった。
Oh. Son of a bitch.
生まれ方は特殊かもしれないけど君は人間だよ。
Real Buddha, yeah? He is still, in reality, he still can interact with objects. Shit. Yeah, this is just like JoJo Part 8.
僕が消えれば君は助かるの。
無駄だよ。せいぜい寿命が数日から数週間伸びるぐらいじゃないかな。
Jeez.
でもそんな愚かな選択肢を選ぶのはやめるんだ。君にはノア2を破壊してほしい。そのために力を使うことを遠慮しないでほしい。
言われなくても分かってる。君に遠慮するほど僕はお人よしじゃない。
Shogun's shoulders shook faintly as he laughed. Making him laugh was the last thing I meant to do, so that annoyed me.
君が目覚めてくれてよかった。勝手な話で迷惑かもしれないけど、あとは君に託す。
Suddenly, the feeling of the wheelchair's handles disappeared. Before I knew it, the wheelchair I was sitting in began to leave me behind. As it moved, it almost seemed to glide across the surface of the water. Its two wheels cut into the water, making waves as they turned. I had no intention of following them. Instead, I absently watched them go.
僕の役目は終わった。
勝手だね。僕に丸投げ。
少し疲れちゃった。眠らせてよ。
He turned to me from his wheelchair. As usual, I couldn't read this expression, but his voice showed an intense urgency.
時間がない。急いで。ノロセはノア2を本格的に稼働させた。
Oh shit.
こうなったらノア2を直接破壊するしかないんだ。頼んだよ。
And then, as if embraced by a cloud of mist, he began to disappear. The very colors of this mental world slowly began to fade.
君に頼まれる筋合いなんてない。僕自身が決めたことをやるだけ。
The sounds of the waves became more distant. Just like Remy had once, I burned this perfect crystal clear sky into my memories. And then I gently closed my eyes. Holy shit! A reporter on the radio was reading the news of a grave tone. What the fuck?
死傷者の数は233人ですが、この数は最終的に3万人を超えるとみられ、
Jesus.
気象庁の発表によりますと、今回の地震の規模は震度7、マグニチュードは 7.8 と関東大震災に匹敵する規模です。
7.8.
渋谷では建物の一部が倒壊し、大規模な陥
Static mixed in with the news, until eventually the reporter spoke no longer.
ダメだわ。また聞こえなくなった。
Oh, shit. Momose shook and hit the old radio with her hand, but upon realizing she was getting nowhere, she let out a heavy sigh.
古いから使い物にならないわね。
Forcing a smile, she looked to the side. She could see the figures of Kishimoto, Luis, and Kusanagi Yua walking along, expressions of fatigue coloring their faces. Both of their uniforms were covered in soot, making clear how laborious the trek here had been. And yet, the great swords they were hoarding, their swords, not a speck of dust on them, said they shone with an unclouded, brutal radiance. After the earthquake, Yua and Elise had walked back to Shibuya from Yogori, went straight to the Friesa office, then joined up with Momose. Waiting for the missing band to return, the three had stayed near the office throughout the night. Even though the earthquake had put the building on the verge of collapse, they had remained all the same. But in the end, Ban had never shown. Momose suggested leaving Shibuya immediately, something Elise clearly took issue with.
グラジオールが目覚めたの。早く他の黒騎士と合流しないと。
Oh boy. Elise asserted her feelings of urgency by tugging on Yua's hand, wanting to reach the rubble raid in the heart of Shibuya as quickly as they could. In the end, Yua and Momose had no choice but to follow along. It was 7 a.m. Not even an hour had passed since the sky had first begun to brighten. There was not a single trace of the refreshing morning air. The other mayhem that had been cloaked in darkness was slowly being exposed by the rising sun. And right now, the three girls found themselves in the midst of it. The city of Shibuya had been transformed into the very picture of hell itself. Roads were torn to oblivion, asphalt protruded from the earth. A number of buildings had collapsed, their debris scattered in broken chunks along the sides of the road. Nearly every window that could be seen was broken, and a massive billboard had fallen from its usual perch atop a building's roof. One would not have to walk too far to see countless corpses left undisturbed, littered among the chaos. For every body Momose witnessed, the same act played out inside her head, one in which she clasped her hands together in pity for their demise. But there were just far too many. It was only partway through that she could not take it anymore, realizing the only way to restrain her sanity was to ignore them outright. The remaining people that would occasionally pass by had lost all expression, existing only to stagger aimlessly through the streets. Fuck, man. What a actual, like, just side of disaster. It just, we don't get to see it happen. All we just see is the aftermath of it. A group of men had come together to try and help the survivors buried beneath the rubble, but did not seem like there was much they could do without heavy lifting equipment. Momose took another glance at what Yua was holding in her hands. A disc sword. Luis had explained them to her. Much like magic, they were swords that were taken out of thin air. What Ban had told her had been true. And yet Yua seemed only shocked and bewildered about possessing one for herself. You know?
ねえ岸本さん。
Luis, walking slightly ahead of the group, paid no attention to Momose's call. The expression on her face made it clear patience was wearing thin.
このディソードを持つ人はあなたたちを含めて全部で7人いるっていうこと？
そうよ。
他の人たちがどこにいるのかわかるの？
わからない。
だったら
感じるのよ。意志を。こっちで間違いないわ。
Luis was effectively a brick wall. With no other options left, Momose repeated the same words for what felt like the 1000th time.
今むやみに歩き回るのは危ないわ。ひとまず安全なところに避難するべきよ。
ダメよ。時間がないの。
もしかしたら他の黒騎士だったかしら。その人たちだって避難場所にいるかもしれないでしょ。
そうですよ、岸本さん。私も避難場所に行くべきだと。
The way suddenly came to a halt, as though Yua's backing had possibly made some sense to her. She narrowed her eyes. And then she looked beyond the rugged Doganzaka roads that no car could traverse.
え、いたって何が？
Oh shit. At the end of Elisa's gaze was a lone girl walking away from the station. She was wearing a Sumue Academy uniform, though it was far more tattered than either Elisa's or Yua's. And with only her left hand, she was holding an enormous cross-shaped sword to her chest. Her gait was marked unsteady, looked as though she could collapse at any moment.
大変。
Momose's body jiggled as she ran towards the girl, towards Nishijou Nanami. The disc sword Nanami was carrying had caught her eye, but instead of prying in order to satiate her curiosity, she focused only on supporting the girl's petite frame. Aw.
大丈夫？よく頑張ったわね。今病院に連れて行ってあげるから気をしっかり持つのよ。
Fucking Momose's... I love Momose. I love her. Nanami's eyes responded in blank confusion to Momose's words of encouragement. Aw.
え、なんて言ったの？Both Yua and Elise blue-eyedly ran up behind Momose.
この子西条くんの妹さんです。そう、黒騎士の資格があるのもうなずけるわ。匠の妹な。
二人ともこの子を運ぶのを手伝って。なんとか病院に連れて行かないと。
痛い。
Nanami groaned in pain.
右手。
右手？
Momose inadvertently glanced down towards Nanami's right hand, gasping in surprise when she did.
だってひどい。こんな。
Yua and Elise were not able to grasp why Momose was so distraught. While the bandage over Nanami's right hand was indeed stained with blood, it did not seem to be that serious of an injury. However, in Momose's eyes, Nanami's hand had been severed from her bandaged wrist. What? Though medical measures had been taken, it was still an open wound. With a blank look on her face, Elise attempted to grab Nanami's right hand, but her outstretched hand passed only through empty air. Like a holographic image, Nanami's fingers lacked any substance. A drop of blood trickled down from the red-stained bandage and fell into Elise's hand.
もうそう。
Huh.
リミさんに助けてもらって。リミさんって崎畑リミさん？
知ってるの？
ええ、西条くんのお友達の。
Yua had always held the suspicion that Takumi was the true ninja and culprit, so she knew a fair amount about his background. This also extended to those that would frequently come into contact with him. Therefore, it was only natural for her to have conducted investigations on Nishijou Tanami and Sakahata Gumi. In contrast to Yua, Elise abandoned their typical aloof expression, grimacing at the mere mention of Rumi's name. What did those two talk about?
崎畑リミも7人の黒騎士の一人。そうなんですか？
Elise recalled yesterday's incident at the hospital. She could remember being addressed by Rumi's apologetic voice. Oh shit.
岸本さん、タクに近づかないで。
Yeah, that's what I thought.
目覚めさせたくないの。
君には自覚がないの。黒騎士の一人としての。
私が一人で何とかするから。
Oof.
とても美しいわ、その思いは。でもそれは大いなる意志の望むことじゃない。私も望んでいないわ。あなた一人に全てを背負わせるなんて。
黒騎士云々の話は今は置いときましょう。とにかく早く病院に連れて行かないと血が止まらないわ。
Most agedly placed her handkerchief on Nami's open wound.
すごい熱だし顔色も悪い。急がないと。
お兄に会いたいよ。
God damn it, man. Tears trickled from Nanami's vacant eyes. Right at that moment, something happened. In an instant, the highway they were staying on collapsed with a deafening roar. Oh, fuck me. Come on, man. They all lost their footing, helplessly entering free fall at gravity's mercy. To them, it was like they were falling to the deepest, darkest, lowest circle of hell. Losing herself in that illusion, Momose raised a scream so loud it betrayed her age entirely. Fuck. Fuck. When I came to, dark clouds covered the sky overhead. The dark night had come to an end before I knew it. There wasn't a shred of blue sky in sight. I was hit with a wave of depression. The sky could not have been more gloomy. Countless sirens from ambulances and fire trucks blurred off in the distance. A multitude of helicopters were in the sky, circling the city like flies. My head was racked with pain, like someone was putting a jackhammer to it. It felt even worse than after the last earthquake. I tried to remember what had happened before my memories had cut off, the sky turning white, Shogun mentioning the third melt. I ignored my headache and stood up, only to lose all words. Here we are at the fucking intro and the main menu of a destroyed Shibuya. The usual scenery was entirely absent. It was like a scene out of the end of the Millennium thing that everyone had been freaking out about almost a decade ago. Shibuya was on the verge of collapse. Traffic lights, roadside trees, and buildings had all fallen to the ground. The Jumbotrons, the most iconic part of Scramble Crossing, really, had cracks whipping through them and were entirely silent. The stairs leading down to the subway were buried beneath the rubble of their own ceilings. The guard around the Yamanote line had fallen apart and the railway had been ripped to shreds. More people than I could count were lying on the ground. Blood and guts clung to the scattered debris. Some remained motionless, some moaned in pain, some screamed for help. Some were covered in dust, crawling on all fours without a care as to how it made them appear. Some only cried, tightly cradling another motionless body in their arms. I could smell of the blood, the rusty smell mixed with the stench of something burning. Everything was covered with the thick odor of dust. Far in the distance, plumes of black smoke rose like smoke signals. This was the power of Noah 2. It was horrifying. This was already on the scale of a weapon of mass destruction. I now understood why Shogun wanted to put an end to this. Come to think of it, where was Shogun? When I came back to myself, I surveyed my surroundings. There was a bent wheelchair lying pretty close to me. Right beside it, his delicate frame was lying there. I ran over to him in a panic and lifted him up. Shit. He didn't react. Not even his inner voice said anything. Oh God, was he dead? I put my ear to his mouth. As faint as it was, he was still breathing. Oh shit. But he was still unconscious. I tried hitting him widely in the cheek a few times, but to no avail. If I didn't know where it was, there was no way I could make it in time to save Remy or Nanami. I should have asked him that when I had the chance. Clicking my tongue, I took my phone out of my pocket. It was off, and despite my many attempts to get it working, it stayed that way. There was nothing more than garbage now. Aside from Shogun, who else would know where to find it? Think, goddammit! I didn't have time for this. But I was wandering around doing absolutely goddamn nothing. That Norose guy could be ready to kill Remy at any moment. Then who? Who was someone that I could trust? Someone who knew about Noah too.
君たちは特別な存在だ。中でも一番特別なのは、その目、誰の目を生み落とした少年。
畑野一世。
Yep. Senna's dad, one of the founding members of Project Noah, the person who is nowhere to be found right now. Not to mention I'd never met him before. Wait, it was possible we passed each other in the street before, actually. Kazuki had told me all about his homeless lifestyle with the guy always wandering around Shibuya.
見つけるしかない。
With the surprisingly light body of Shogun on my back, I mindfully made my way through the debris. I didn't have a clue as to where Hatano-san was, but I had no choice. I had to find him no matter what. Fuck. As light as Shogun's body was, it was still nearly 20 kilograms. It was hard enough just carrying him around Shibuya, but it was even worse factoring in all the uneven roads. I wasn't one for exercise. I mean, hell, my daily routine consisted of me just sitting in front of my computer all day. I considered finding a way to get Shogun to the hospital, but with Shibuya the way it was, I doubt I could even get an ambulance. Even the gentle hill that was Dogenzaka was doing its best to drain all of my energy. I could barely breathe, and my whole body was gushing out buckets of sweat. Wiping the sweat off my forehead, I took a quick break to catch my breath. Kishimoto? Suddenly, I could faintly hear someone's voice. Someone was singing, their voice white with loneliness, but not without hope. Their soothing voice washed over me. I'd heard the scene somewhere before. Back at that concert, even in spite of the glaring lights overwhelming my vision and the blaring sound shaking the entire airtight building, I'd still managed to take it in. But this time, I was in the middle of the road, where I couldn't see a single sign of life, and yet, in the center of this collapsed city dominated by death, I could hear her. I put Shogun down and surveyed my surroundings once again, but the only people I could see were the collapsed corpses strewn across the city. I did my best to avoid looking at them, except focusing on trying to find Louise. Where the hell was her voice coming from? The wood in front of me was wholly caved in. Looking at it, the hole I created was incredibly big. There's definitely a subway tunnel beneath it. I didn't want to believe it at first, but even so, I peered down from the edge of the hole. It was about 5 meters deep. There was a pretty fair amount of rubble piled up at the bottom. And that was where Louise had fallen. Oh shit. They jumped down into the hole. They didn't stick the landing whatsoever, except basically swam into the rubble while just barely avoiding falling over. Louise's leg was pinned under a pretty sizable slab of concrete, stopping her from moving. I really did give it my best effort, but moving it just wasn't possible on my own.
私だけじゃない。他に3人いるわ。君の妹も。
Oh shit.
ナナミが。
What the hell was she doing here? Hadn't that Norose guy kidnapped her?
ナナミ！ナナミ！
Enduring the pain in my legs, I stood up and yelled out for my sister, but I got no reply. Looking around me, I only saw one other person besides Elise. There was a pretty hefty woman lying face down on the ground, and while she wasn't moving, she only seemed to be unconscious. Ooh, thank God. Nanami and one other person were absent. Maybe they've been buried alive. I had to find them right this second. My eyes shot to the top of the hole. There's enough dust to make anyone hack their lungs out, but beyond that I could see the circular shape of the sky above. I thought about Shogun, who I'd raid on the road up there. I remembered what Remy had told me.
妄想をすればするほど本物のあなたの命が削られていっちゃうんだ。
Huh. But I couldn't hesitate here. Oh shit. I drew my disc sword entirely from thin air. Consciously avoiding looking at her leg, I sat down near Elise and peered at her face. I stared into her eyes, refusing to look at anything else. That should do the trick. I see.
妄想するんだ。
A strong one. A really strong one.
綾瀬の足の上にある瓦礫は大きなものじゃない。数は多いけど一つ一つは小さい。重くない。簡単に足を引っ張り出せる。
Yep.
他の二人も助け出せる。
Me and Elise, we only needed mutual recognition between us two Gigglomaniacs, because once we had that, then our delusion was sure to become reality. Ooh. Out of nowhere, we smiled with Elise. She gently stroked my cheek with her fingers.
グラジオールを導きね。君がここに来てくれたのは。
Wow, she is cute. I blinked nervously. Exactly as I deluded it to be, the large slab of concrete panning Elise's leg had now turned into a heap of smaller pieces. Pushing away some of the debris, Elise slipped her leg right out. I really hadn't expected that to go so damn well. Starting to move, she massaged her ankle. Luckily, her injuries didn't seem all that bad.
綾瀬の歌が聞こえたんだ。それに導かれたんだよ。
そうよかった。続けてきて。
Helping Elise up, I stood and took a look around.
ナナミは
I still didn't see any signs of my sister. Had my delusion failed after all? Or was the Nanami already? I began to feel anxious. Huh? I heard a voice. Looking in the direction of it, I saw a hand reaching out from a gap inside the rubble. And so I took that hand, gripped its slender fingers, and peered into the gap. Oh.
Oh.
The gap was almost like a tunnel, and in that tunnel was a familiar-looking girl wearing glasses. It felt like it had been ages since I last seen Yua.
なぜか急にこの隙間ができて、ついさっきまで全く身動きが取れなかったんですけど。
The girl averted her eyes from me, with a face that seemed almost apologetic.
手をしっかり掴んでて。
I tightly gripped Yua's hand. Then I pulled as hard as I possibly could away from the gap. Elise helped as well. With the two of us pulling Yua with all our might, she managed to break free from the rubble without too much trouble. What a true Deus Ex Machina. But, makes sense. I really like that, though. That's a unique-ass power of Deus Ex Machina, quite literally.
ありがとう。ごぜ。
She was covered from head to toe in dust. A few pieces of concrete were tangled up in her long hair. But even with all of that, Yua seemed completely uninjured. Now Nanami. Leaving Yua with Luis, I started to search for Nanami. Given Yua had managed to break free, I could only assume that my delusion had actually worked, and if that was true, then Nanami should have been in some rubble somewhere that I could yank her free from. And lo and behold, that was exactly the case. As I searched through tons and tons more rubble, I managed to catch a glimpse of Nanami's face through a crack in the debris.
Nanami!
I called to her, but she didn't respond. She must have fainted. Reaching out, I went to touch her shoulder, but hesitated. What if it happens again? The memory from yesterday flashed into my mind of Nanami vanishing into particles right before my eyes. No, this has to be the real Nanami. Gathering my resolve, I grabbed her by the shoulder, or more specifically by her blouse. I could actually touch her. I could feel her warmth. Just like I had with Yua a bit ago, I pulled her out with all my strength. Unlike Elise or Yua, however, Nanami's uniform was stained with blood. Her hand especially was covered in red. Regardless, I weighted her down on the ground, then went to check her breathing. She seemed to be in pain, but she was still breathing.
Yokatta.
Okay. Shh. I'm actually surprised. I really thought all of them would be dead or something. I like... Even so, I couldn't help but worry about her right hand. It was absolutely covered in blood, and yet, when I tried to grab it, my fingers slipped right through it. A delusionary hand? That could only mean Nanami's right hand was...
Gomen. Gomen. Makikonde.
A groan reached from Nanami's mouth. Her face was caked in dust. I gently stroked her cheek and watched as her eyelids slowly began to open. Her gaze faintly wandered for a moment before finally landing on me.
Nanami.
And at that very moment, Nanami's expression warped and changed. Tremendous tears broke free from her eyes, her left hand firmly grasped my own. She whispered to me so happily, felt as if she never wanted to let me go. But when I heard those whispers, I responded with a slight shake of my head.
Nanami no honto no oni wa boku janai yo.
Oh boy. What the hell? Whoa, my memories are so cloudy. That was how Nishijou Nanami felt. Her brother's words had been the trigger in her heart, and now she felt as if she had two brothers. Oh. However, what her heart told her was that it was not just as if she had two, but that she really did have two. Her mind flashed back to the past, and she remembered her two brothers' faces. One of them seemed quite pathetic. One of them was covered in wrinkles. And yet, despite these distinctions, she was still convinced that she only had a single brother. Something was not adding up. Something between her memories and her cognition. What was reality? What was illusion? She did not know, and that scared her. To escape this, she attempted to empty her mind of all thoughts. When suddenly her own voice audibly rippled outward. Nana, you need to stay strong. The next thing she knew, she was standing in a hallway illuminated by the setting sun. She could smell disinfectant, and before her stood a rather plain door. She reached out toward it and took hold of the handle, and then, through no will of her own, her hand opened the door. Ooh.
ああ、お兄、またご飯食べないつもり？
Interesting. So I was kind of curious about this of what would be Nanami's perspective on this. Now, I kind of assumed, because we saw Nanami, like quote unquote Nanami, try to comfort Takumi, disappear into particles. I thought that was what happened all this time, right? Like every time that Takumi quote unquote met Nanami, it was actually just a delusion, an illusion. Well, the real Nanami actually hung out with her sickly brother, Shogun, right? And it was until the point where she got kidnapped and her hand was chopped out and sent to the delusionary Takumi, right? I really thought it was that, but I guess there's only one Nanami, really, which begs the question of how is her memories like? How can he differentiate the two?
ちゃんと食べてっていつも言ってるじゃん。出ないと元気になんないよ。あ、もしかしてグリーンピースが入ってるから？子供じゃないんだし、いい加減好き嫌いやめたら？そりゃナナだってグリーンピース嫌いだから残したくなる気持ちはわかるけど、ちゃんと食べてくんないとナナが怒られるんだからね。あの怖い看護師長さんに。
ナナミ、
何？
今まで辛く当たってごめん。
お兄が謝るなんて珍しいじゃん。
もう僕のために無理をする必要はないんだ。
何言ってるの？
僕は身を隠さなくちゃならなくなった。だからお前はもうここには来なくていい。
何のつもり？
さようなら。
Oh shit. Oh. Of course. And that was her memory, where her memories cut off. Shogun overwrote her memories with the delusionary Takumi. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the power to warp reality is a hell of a power. Those memories about her real brother. Her brother had been suffering from a serious illness, leading her to graciously spend many years tending to him in the hospital. No matter how much time had passed, she knew she had to stay strong so that she could best take care of him in his time of need. For the past year and a half, these things had disappeared from her memory entirely. She had forgotten that those memories had even existed. And in exchange for that, her brother had continued living on his own in good health, right there in Shibuya. Her mother had asked her to routinely check in on him, leading her to sometimes drop by on the way home from school. And thus she had done so, thinking nothing of it. After all, he was her brother. Checking in on him might as well have already been routine. She had never housed any doubts about it.
どうしてナナは忘れちゃってたんだろう。
Nearly 30 minutes had passed since she had been rescued from beneath the rubble. Now she had finally been reunited with her real brother. There he was, lying still on the road. He was still breathing but remained unconscious. His body was as small, wrinkled, emaciated, and incredibly weak as she remembered. It was the brother from so long ago whom she had always known.
こんなのひどいよ。ナナはお兄に文句ばっかり言ってたけど。
Though her brother did not reply, she clung to his small body all the same, letting loose a flood of tears.
お兄のこと一度だって忘れたいなんて思ったことなかったのに。勝手だよ。わがまますぎだよ。
The sound of metal lightly scraping against something came from within her brother's clothes, and a moment later something slipped free from his pocket. It was what Nanami had been searching for, but she lost her right hand, she lost it as well. a flimsy, cheap bangle of a snowflake motif. Confused, she stared at her real brother's face, his eyes buried in wrinkles in an open return. Nanami picked up the bangle with her left hand. She remembered how it felt to touch. It was her brother's first present to her, Nanami's greatest treasure. Nanami lifted her gaze, unconsciously searching for her other brother. He was holding a long sword, and his back was turned to her. But he was walking away. He was leaving this place. Even without saying a word, Nanami could understand that much. The fact that he might leave without saying even a word to her left her wrought with a terrible loneliness.
行っておいで。
Nanami's brow furrowed in confusion, and she softly searched around herself.
今声が
It was her brother's voice. That much she indeed remembered. The voice of her brother who should have been unconscious.
彼は僕と一心同体。もう一人のお兄なんだから。
Whether it was truly her brother's voice or a mere hallucination, Nanami could not tell. And yet, regardless of which it was, she whispered all the same.
分かった
She whispered to her brother, who still lay in the ground. Nanami stood up and walked toward her older brother's back. She hardly had any strength left. Day after day, she had been trapped in the pitch-black room, forced to take part in some sick tableau of agonizing crucifixion. She could not even remember how many times she had thought she would die. Her right hand in particular caused her tremendous amounts of pain, as if a chisel was being stuck into it all the way to the bone. The sensation that she whacked her hand, together with the illusion that it still remained, were tearing her mind in two. She was exhausted, both mentally and physically. If she lost focus, there was no doubt she would fall to the ground, too drained to get back up again. Therefore, she had to make a desperate effort to reach her hand out at this very instant. Even if it took more effort than she could give, she would do everything in her power to make him stop.
待って
She narrowly managed to squeeze something out, and thankfully he had heard. He halted his stride and looked back toward Nanami. Even though she had managed to stop him, she was lost on what exactly to say to him. The reality that this person was not her brother at all. The conviction that this person was her brother to the end. Those two feelings had blended together in her head, making them even harder to discern. But she gripped her bangle tightly in her left hand. It had been his gift to her, one that felt cold to the touch but warm to the heart. The very existence of this bangle linked both him and her together. That was how she felt. And that answer was all she needed. Her hesitation instantly faded.
お兄は本当のお兄じゃないかもしれないけど頼りにならなくてたくさんでアニメキャラのお人形さんばっかり集めてて口が悪くて愛想もなくて意地悪なことばっかり言うけどお兄もナナのお兄だよ
Trying her hardest to fight back her tears, Nanami smiled as best she could.
ありがとう、ナナミ。
Upon gazing at his expression, she saw that her other brother seemed a little embarrassed, and with that relief washed over Nanami before slowly putting her consciousness to rest. Nanami nearly collapsed, and I hurriedly went to catch her. She lost consciousness. Her face was pale, and she was clearly having trouble breathing.
早く病院に運ばないと
このままじゃ危ないわ。
The hefty woman, who had introduced herself as Momose, peered in Nanami's face as she voiced her concern. Next, she turned to Shogun.
そっちに寝かせてる子もね。
I decided to leave Nanami in Momose-san's care.
2人を頼みます。
あなたはどうする？
探さなくちゃいけない人がいて。
So I could learn the whereabouts of Noah too. I had asked Nanami since she had been taken there when she was kidnapped, but she wasn't too sure of it herself. In the end, I had no choice but to find Hatano.
必要なことなのね。グラジオールを倒すために。
グラジオール。あ、
We placed that with Noah too, and
うん。そうだよ。
Elisa's expression stiffened. She took a single step toward me, but the way she slightly dragged her leg, I could tell she had generally been injured.
一緒に行くわ。私も。
その必要はないよ。
Even though I tried to tell her no, she only shook her head in refusal.
一に集まらないと。
綾瀬も、それに、岩も。畑野っていう人を探してほしい。
At the mere mention of her name, Yua jumped a little from her hiding spot behind Momose.
その人がノア2の場所知ってるから。一緒に行動しなくても僕はみんなの見聞きしたことがわかる。
Yeah?
だから今は手分けして探して。
That was the best option we had at the moment, and we had to be quick about it. There was no guarantee we'd be safe if another earthquake struck.
わかった。
Elise seemed to agree with me, though she didn't look at all that happy about it.
なんだかよくわからないけど、
野呂瀬源一が全ての黒幕です。
そういうこと。それなら妹さんたちのことは私に任せなさいな。
Momose-san puffed out her chest in a display of bravado, and then she gave me a quick nod, likely an attempt to cheer me on.
ただし無茶しちゃダメよ。それと一つ頼まれてほしいんだけど、ばんちゃん、ヘラヘラ笑ってるうさんくさそうな中年刑事を見たら私に連絡するように伝えてくれる？
Still holding out hope for him. Did she mean Ben Yasuji? I knew all about how he had died. He had been shot and killed by his own partner. I had unconsciously seen it all unfold. I fully intended to tell Momose-san this, but...
まったく、あの人はこんな時にどこをほっつき歩いてるんだか。まあ、案外どこかで怪我人を助けてるのかもしれないけどね。
Momose had to go and say something like that. Now I can no longer bring myself to tell her the truth.
というわけでよろしく。
はい。
Without meaning to, I nodded, making a promise I'd never be able to keep. But that had been the only answer I could have ever thought to make.
西条くん。
With her head lowered, Yua spoke with a barely audible voice. For a good while now, she had been nervously taking peeks at me, which made me think she had something to say.
あなたのこと疑ってごめんなさい。
あ、
私、西条くんを傷つけるようなこと言って。
The lenses of her glasses were covered in dust, and yet I knew very well that behind her, her eyes were wet with tears.
謝っても許してもらえるとは思ってないです。それでも謝らせてください。ごめんなさい。
She bowed her head deeply. I didn't reply. All I did was turn my back to her.
僕のベースにあるセイラのフィギュア。
はい。
よかったらもらってくれる？
Back when she deceived me, I couldn't have been more shocked, but now I understood why she had done what she'd done. So it just felt wrong to say I forgive you, or something along those lines. It was true that I always thought of her as my enemy, but I had no right to make her bow to me, nor any right to forgive her.
いいんですか？
もらってほしい。
はい。また一緒にフィギュア買いに行きましょうね。
With that, you will put on the same gentle smile she'd had when we first met. God damn it, my heart. God damn it, why are these girls so cute? Fucking God, I know that's the point of them, but God, they're so. I have to say, the fucking character writing is great. Each of these girls are so interesting in their own unique ways, and I just like the art. I really love the art. Actually, I do. It's so 2000s anime that I love it. I love it. It's so sincere. It's so cute. Honestly, it's just it gets at me. It really does. It really does. Ugh. I nodded to her in response. I exchanged looks with both Luis and Momose-san. Then I etched the image of Nanami and Shogun into my eyes one last time. And so I began walking alone among the mountains of rubble once again. Shinsei Station of the... Oh my god. Shinsei Station of the... Kashyariya's line kill me. Was one stop from Shibuya, with it taking only about a minute to arrive there by train. The station itself was situated within an underground tunnel, resulting in the only natural light being the beam seeping in from the opening at the end of the platform. Due to the earthquake, all the lights had gone out, enveloping the area in a far thicker darkness than usual. Carefully supporting Ohara Kazui's body, Aoi Senna set foot onto the platform. There had been no need to buy a ticket. Not a single staff member was present in the vicinity, and none of the ticket machines were in service. Only a glance was necessary to understand how horribly warped the railway tracks had become. It was no wonder that the trains had suspended operation the day before. Kazui's left leg was drenched in blood. Oof, she had been deeply cut by broken glass during the earthquake. Senna attempted to staunch the flow of blood with a towel, but the wound was far worse than she had supposed. Basic first aid would not suffice. Maniacs aren't able to use their powers to heal wounds. To the brain, pain is an inescapable reminder of reality. Thus, Maniacs cannot form any sort of mutual recognition to the effect of "I'm not wounded" or "the injury didn't happen." Human instinct would never allow it. Yeah, that would make sense, because like if I stab myself in the hand, I'm gonna still be feeling that. Like I can't like block out my brain of like, I didn't stab myself in the hand, I don't feel it. While with like something of like a great weight on you though, you can like imagine that weight is like more less heavier than it actually is, you know, as we saw with Elise. So yeah. Even with Kazui's teary protests, Senna remained wordless as she marched intently towards Shinsen Station. Only one thing held her focus, something she refused to avert any attention from. Oh boy. When they had last reached the deserted platform, Senna quickly pulled back the arm she had been using to support Kazui. With no strength remaining in one of her legs, Kazui immediately collapsed to the ground. Kuzui lifted her gaze in bewilderment, but Senna paid her no mind. Glaring motionlessly at a certain point in the distance, the black-haired girl gritted her teeth. Uh-oh.
やった。
Shit.
見つけた。
Shit. At the end of her gaze, in the dark recesses of the platform sat a lone human figure.
セナさんのパパなのだ。
Oh no, there's not time to celebrate. It was a homeless man clad in filthy rags. At his hand, he held a sign that read, "The hearts of the people face annihilation." Senna slowly approached the man.
誰に向けたメッセージだ。
Her voice was cold and unfeeling, a tone that could freeze all who came into contact with it.
負を生へと変換できる者たちへの遺言だよ。
Oh, fuck, man.
セナ。
Keeping his head hung low, the homeless man did not even look his daughter in the eye as he dispassionately spoke her name.
お前に慣れ慣れしく名前を呼ばれたくない。この半年、ずっと考えてきた。お前をどうやって殺すか。
ありがとう。
どうして礼を言う。
利己的な理由だよ。お前に殺されることが私にとって最善の贖罪かもしれない。そう思ったからだ。
それなら話を。
Shit. Senna rebooted her disc sword. The method she had chosen for her father's execution was death by her disc sword. The simplicity behind it laid the truth bare. The way she killed him did not matter. All that mattered was killing him at all.
すまない。
Hatano still refused to raise his head.
どうして謝る。
お前に父殺しの汚名を着せてしまうからだ。
Phew.
殺せさえすれば、どんな恥ずかしめだって受けてやる。お前は母さんと妹を殺した。
事実だ。
しかもあんなむごい最後。
Senna could only act calm and collected for so long. As her emotions began to take control, she was seized by a fierce tremble.
お前には見せたくはなかった。いや、今のは聞き流してくれ。
なぜあんなことを。
過程を説明することは無意味だよ。お前は納得しないし、結果が改変されるわけでもない。
Senna thrust the tip of her disc sword towards Hatano's head.
そうやってまた逃げるのか。
間違っていたのは私だ。それが全てなんだ。
お前には失望した。
まだ期待していたのか。何を。人を含めて世界は全て電気仕掛け。
Ooh.
そう言ったのはお前だ、セナ。
Senna's shoulders trembled. For nearly 3 years, ever since Hatano had begun the Mana project, the two of them had rarely come into contact, and yet, despite the significant time apart, Hatano had seen right through her, something which troubled her to no end. Distraught by the sheer discomfort she felt, the weaving of her heart morphed into nothing but pure fury, dispelling any form of reason she had still had within her.
セナ、惑わされるな。電気仕掛けならば、お前のその私を恨む感情もまた、ただの電気信号でしかない。
Hatano's just trying to overwhelm me. That was what Senna told herself. Calm down.
お前の言葉なんか無効だ。
あまり感情的な行動をとるな。でなければお前は矛盾する。その言葉を受け取ってはいけない。精神攻撃だ。判断を中止するんだ。
話を終わりだ。
Senna tried to take a stance over this sword. But before she could, Hatsuno suddenly stood up. Kazui watched her exchange with unease, and when she wondered if she'd interfere, the pain in her leg forced her to abandon all hope of doing so. She was not sad, but that did not stop her from weeping deep within herself. Hatsuno took one large step forward. Oh boy. Her response to Wade sent her switch to an offensive position, but in her attempt to brace herself, her feet slipped on the gravel. As her body shook and staggered, her stance began to collapse. Any sort of edge her appearance had once held disappeared. In its place came a great fear. Her hatred toward her father had given her the strength to persist, but now that the time had come to face him at last, she found herself deeply afraid. She did not quite understand why that was. All she knew was that the cause lay within the words he had just spoken. Hatsuno threw himself at her with tremendous speed. Shit. As she fell backward, ignoring both gravity and centrifugal force alike, she swung her enormous disc sword up from below. Oh! The blade first carved out the tile of the platform floor, then it slashed straight through her father's shoulder. It moved with a fluidity akin to a hot knife through butter. Her father's hand sent her flying backward. Fresh blood burst from her father's injury. His eyes were colored with an expression of deep relief. So his teeth sank into her lip. Not even a second later, something pierced her father's chest at lightning speed. Tearing in through his back, it flew straight through the man's chest, very narrowly grazed Senna, then swiftly disappeared. Now blood gushed not just from his shoulder, but from his chest as well. The crimson liquid flowing from his wounds splattered against Senna's cheeks. Did fucking somebody assassinate him? A bullet? Having been thrown backward, the moment Senna landed on her rear, her head shot right back up, and she frantically searched for the shooter. What the fuck? The man stood in the crossway between the Shinshin Station tunnel and the tunnel leading to Shibuya Station, the sole place illuminated by the gaping patch of sky above. He was holding a handgun. Wait. Is that Suwa? Senna's father collapsed beside her. Half of his body was already soaked in blood. No. Were you protecting me? Overcome with disbelief, Senna fixed her gaze on the pool of blood spilling over the tile floor. Gasping for air, her father weakly spoke. The bullet had been meant for Senna, but Hatsuno had taken it in her place. She had been trying to take her father's wife, but he had given it for her instead. Senna tightened her grip on the disc sword she held in her hand. What? An odd noise echoed throughout the platform, a sound Senna instantly recognized as a Noah 2 terminal. How long has that sound been going on for? Senna would not let it continue. The existence of the man who had sat between her and their father, the man whose gun had prematurely ended their resolution, was something she would not let continue.
よくも邪魔を
When she stood up and fixed her eyes ahead... What the fuck? The cries of an infant began to resound throughout the dimly lit platform. A sense of strange discomfort grew in her hands. For some reason she could not comprehend. Instead of a sword, she was clutching a decayed, dissected baby. Oh my god. In an action motivated by reflex, she cast it away from her. But immediately after she had done so, she realized the child was her own sister. Her sister whom she had only studied once before, long ago. Her sister whose name she did not know and whose own mother had devoured her until hardly anything remained. That was the child before her. Large versions where chunks of meat had been bitten free covered her entire frame. Each tear in the dry skin provided a window to view glistening fragments of white bone, and the pink scraps of flesh adhered to them. Senna began to tremble once more. She could not take her eyes off of it. Fucking Noah too, man. She could not forgive herself for feeling disgust at her own sister, let alone tossing her aside like filth. It was exactly like back then, when she had seen her mother's last moments. Her mother had died while ruled completely by madness. She still nestled within her mother's arms. Her sister had been shredded to pieces and consumed, left only as a heap of pitiful remains. In response to the sight that she had been forced to witness, rather than sadness or horror, what she had felt was pure, utter revulsion. Remnants of guilt remained lodged deep within her chest. Despising their father was her way of averting her eyes from that emotion. Yeah, I gotta replace it with something.
私は
Even though a part of her very much knew that this was an attack brought on by a delusion, the reawakened feelings had been sealed deep within her heart, leaving her entirely motionless. It was as if her wrists and ankles were bound. Fuck. But Senna was not the only one suffering from such a state. Kazooie was as well. Oh fuck. An enormous mirror had materialized in front of the collapsed girl, and within it, a reflection of her with her legs covered in blood asked her a single question.
お前は誰?
Kazooie froze in terror. Large tears began to flow from her eyes. The wounds she wanted to forget, the past she'd never wanted to remember. Tears of a deep decay began leaking from her heart and mind. She wanted to run away as far as her legs could take her, desiring nothing more than to walk away from the mirror. She wished to turn away. Yet forgoing her will entirely, her body refused to move. Herself on the other side of the mirror was not shedding even a single tear.
お前は誰? 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 私は誰? 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 私は誰?
She was collapsing into Gestalt-Fall. That is a German thing. What is that? Loss of axotometry, deterioration of cognitive ability, a concept in psychology with Gestalt being the German word for form. The human brain perceives without question what it visually sees as A, based on the environment, circumstances, and knowledge gained through experience. However, when A's identity is rejected for some reason or another, the obvious becomes no longer obvious, and one will fall victim to a state in which they can see A, but are no longer able to perceive it as A. Oh. I've never heard this before. Holy shit. Okay. Fuck. just like when she had lost all words so long ago, just like when her heart and mind had broken so long ago. No longer able to see herself, she re-questioned herself in the mirror. She lacked any certainty that it was her own voice. She lacked any certainty that it was her own hairstyle. She lacked any certainty that it was her own nose. She lacked any certainty that it was her own pair of eyes. She lacked any certainty that it was the fullness of her own lips. She lacked any certainty that it was her own shape. She lacked any certainty that it was her own face.
私は誰？
君はコズピーだよ。
Her shape in the mirror had been on the cusp of dividing infinitely, but the voice that suddenly burst into her mind had put a stop to it.
私はコズピー。私はコズピー。
She reconfirmed her identity. Kazooie had returned to herself. Nice. Cracks ripped through the enormous mirror before her, and then it shattered to pieces. Kazooie searched for the voice of her savior. When her gaze arrived at the ticket gate, she recognized exactly who it was. Her real voice, the one that would have been lost forever, called out to him. Aww. Kazooie called out, not with her inner voice, but with her real voice. I realized that was the first time I'd ever heard her use it. It was thanks to Kazooie that I managed to get over here so quickly. I'd been next to a police box at the top of Dokenzaka when I heard her inner voice screaming for help. Running toward that voice had brought me here, and when I got here I saw Senna and Kazooie, faces pale from being shown a delusion I couldn't see, and Hatanosuke-san collapsed and covered in blood. I'd found them, but I was too late. Motherfucker. A man with a gun in his hand was sitting at the crossing. He twirled and whirled it around his fingers as if he was some sort of gunslinger. Contrasting heavily with the suit he was wearing, he had a rucksack on his back. A large mechanical noise was emanating from it. Suwamamaru, a detective in the Tokyo MPD's first investigative division. This wasn't the first time I'd run into him, and I knew exactly what he'd done.
もともとは目障りな畑の親子を処分しに来たんすけどね。西条くん、君が自分から火に飛び込んできてくれて感謝感激っす。君を見かけたら捕まえろってことになってるんすよ。
God damn it. I hope you're just being brainwashed, Suwa. I really do, damn it, man.
誰に？
内緒っす。
He smiled a flippant smile, one that was somewhat reminiscent of Detective Band's. But there was one key difference. Detective Band's smile had always been just an act meant to throw people off or rile them up. When it came to Suwa, however, the sly smile was who he truly was.
あんたはノロセの居場所を知ってる？
西条くんさ。
Suwa heaved a sigh, shaking his head in extremely exaggerated emotion.
口の聞き方に気をつけてほしいっすね。自分の方が年上っすよ。
Man, fuck you. Even if you're brainwashed, fuck you still, man.
バンっていう人を殺したのはあんただ。
I mean, there goes my whole theory about, like, it not actually being Suwa. Since, you know.
だから
刑事のくせに人を殺すなんて。
君には言われたくないっす。
I gripped my death sword tightly.
あんたみたいなやつに敬語を使う義理なんてないよ。
そんな舐めた口聞いていいんすか？
Oh shit.
そう童貞野郎。
Oh fuck. Even from this distance, it was queer to see. The smile on Sua's face had disappeared. Without moving from where he was, he gestured with his hand like he was trying to shake something off. Oh, shit. Ooh. An impact followed by pain. It was all too abrupt sensation. When I looked at my shoulder in surprise, I saw a familiar looking cross pierced into it. Son of a bitch! No, it was no cross, it was a stake. A cross-shaped stake from the crucifixion case. It had come at me too fast to see. The area was so dark I didn't even realize it was flying toward me until it had already hit me. Sue had thrown it. Without moving from his spot, he'd thrown it from that distance with pinpoint accuracy. I cautiously touched the stake. It felt cold and smooth. Was it a delusion? Or was it real? The pain was growing more and more intense. I couldn't put any strength into my hand. Ooh, I wasn't able to hold on to my disc sword anymore. Sua raised his voice in an attempt to suppress his rage. Motherfucker. Oh shit. Oh my god. Fuck it. Not even a moment later, Sua was holding even more cross-shaped stakes in his hand. Doing his best to restrain his furious rage, I was on the verge of pouring out. He fired off the additional stakes towards Nishijou Takumi. Ooh, what's this music? They disregarded all form of drag and the walls of physics altogether. Fucking stakes of hell. Oof, goddamn. As if they possessed wills of their own, they sped intently towards Takumi's arms. 15 had found their mark thus far, and a single one had missed. They had assaulted Takumi's shoulders, upper arms, wrists, palms, lips, and thighs, knees, and shins. Blood spilled from every one of his deeply carved wounds. Sua already had another stake in his hand, and once again he fired it off just like the others. Ooh. What the hell? Felt an incredibly strange sensation. Oh! Oh shit! Oh, you motherfuckers. That's such a way to do this. Top is Takumi's spots and the bottom is Sua's spots. That's sick. Alright. I felt an incredibly strange sensation. Yeah, he's probably not even going to listen to me anyway, Sua thought to himself. Each and every wound carved into my body only made me feel more alive. Sua hurled yet another stake towards Takumi, who hung his head at the mercy of his attacker. Oh shit, of course, because of Noah. All of it could be attributed to the rucksack the man was wearing on his back, a bag housing a Noah 2 terminal within it. With that, he could enjoy Noah 2's power even at a distance. Oof. He would become an artificial giggle maniac, son of a bitch. Sua found himself wholly bewitched by its power. Sua was wholly bewitched by its power. Subtle differences. He was among the fanatics who would commit the dirtiest of deeds in the name of the founder and his teachings. Who the fuck is the... and he was among the vanguards who would commit the dirtiest of deeds in the name of the founder and his teachings. Who the fuck is the founder? And what is his teachings? What is this cult? I mean, I guess in a sense I'm kind of right with being brainwashed, since obviously in the cult, but yeah, I don't think Scylla was. Yeah, I mean he's using Noah to his power. I think this was always Scylla. I just have to face that now. Fuck, man, I was completely involved. I was so behind Scylla too, you fucking dick.
信仰のため、信じる者のために戦えるんだから。
Scylla hurled yet another stake. It penetrated the nape of my neck, penetrated the nape of Takumi's neck. I was racked with extreme pain that felt as if my entire body was torn in two. Pain so horrible I felt as if I might go insane. The boiling, ruthless blood was simmering into his heart, demanding to know just how much pain the boy could endure. Springing forth from the torture taking place, death began to rear its head. Springing forth from the torture taking place, he would make death rear its head in him. I was unable to resist, and while I still managed to put enough force into my legs to stop myself from falling over, Takumi was unable to resist, while he still managed to avoid falling over. None of that could prevent the hail of stakes coming at me. My chest, my stomach, my toes, my entire body. With no mercy in sight, stakes both thick and sharp were continually pounded into me.
虫ピンで標本にされた昆虫みたいだな。
God damn.
しかもカブトムシとか蝶とかじゃない。お前みたいなガキにはコガネムシあたりがお似合いだ。
God damn! Fuck you, Scylla! I couldn't stand for another second. Willpower alone was all that kept me from collapsing, so I was baffled at what could possibly be keeping him from collapsing. But I was almost at my limit, but he knew the boy was almost at his limit. My field of vision was becoming pixelated. It was hard to see anymore. With eyes as empty as those, he likely could not see anymore.
遺言があるならいいな。ただし20時以内。
Tightly clutching the next stake, Scylla was talking to me as if he had already won. The next would kill me.
さっき童貞やろうって言った。
Also, now I'm thinking back to it, Fan did mention that a lot of times Scylla would just go off on his own and do his own thing, so yeah, that might have clued me in, but god damn it. Ugh. You fucking dick, Scylla.
傷ついたのか。
Using his voice in the distance as a guide, I glared in Scylla's direction. Though the light in Takumi's eyes was soon to die, he glared in Scylla's direction all the same.
これが最後の一本。信仰の救いはお前にはやらねえよ。
I could sense the air tearing around the stake that Scylla had hurled. Scylla hurled the stake he had been holding.
知ってる。
The stake would serve as a cross, the messenger bringing both certain death and the promised gospel. Death would come to whomever it struck. Holy shit.
童貞の妄想力はすごいんだ。
A dull thud resounded. The stake had deeply penetrated his forehead. An incredible burst of pain exploded within Suwa, gushing forth from every part of his body. As if it had been entirely an illusion, the intense pain that had consumed every part of my entire body immediately disappeared. Oh, you motherfuckers! They switched! Oh, what the fuck? Oh, that's so cool to do! Suwa let out a mute scream, writhing in agony. I let out a deep breath, then slowly licked my dry lips. In a wave of cross-shaped stakes penetrated Suwa's entire body. There was a single cross-shaped stake in my hand. When he looked upward, he saw the cross-shaped stake embedded in his forehead. When I looked upward, I saw the overcast, gloomy sky above.
復活の奇跡は物語で妄想なんだ。何をした？
Easy. What we thought at the beginning. What he thought. That he himself had did it.
妄想シンクロ。
Oh. Assimilation onto a delusion. Erosion onto the mind. Like two ripples negating one another. Like two wavelengths resonating with one another. Entangling together, melting together. A fate which distorts created by one. A fate which is distorted created by another. Switching them out, switching them in. There's no way that's possible, Suwa thought to himself. Suwa's expression read his thoughts bare.
神の先兵ならメシアと同じように朽ち果てろ。
Takumi tossed the stake away. I tossed the stake away. Color is quickly fading from Suwa's field of vision. Light was quickly fading from Suwa's eyes.
それと僕は救いなんかいらないよ。
Suwa could no longer reply. Without falling to the ground, he breathed his final breath. I made my way back into the station. Kazupi's eyes were wide and her mouth hung open. She was completely stunned, seeing all that must have really surprised her. Her leg was covered in so much blood it was hard to look at.
小ズピ、大丈夫？
Without getting up from the ground, she nodded. Didn't look like she was able to stand on her own. Her shimmering eyes looked up at me.
たくみさん、今、何が起きたの？
Kazupi, you're talking out loud. Aw.
あ、本当だ。
Putting a finger to her lips, she tilted her head in surprise. But she seemed to forget about it pretty quickly after that.
童貞さんの妄想力はすごいの？
Yeah.
すごいよ。
That's... You ever hear the tale of once you become 30 years old, while being a virgin, you become a wizard? Senna once told me ignorance was a sin, but I don't quite agree with that. Not knowing things goes hand in hand with delusions. The less you know, the more your delusions can grow and surge, to the point of infinity, really. Therefore, if you already know and have experienced everything, there'd be nothing left to fantasize about. Yeah? Yeah. Then if there's one thing virgins definitely lack, it's experience, so it only makes sense that their delusions are the best around. Speaking of Senna, where was she? I searched the dimly lit platform for her. She was standing at the edge of the platform, hanging her head, and at her feet.
畑野さん。
Was Hatsuno Isie, lying in the pool of his own blood. He showed no signs of moving, leading me to realize he was already dead. I want to comment on like how he was able to do that, because yeah, it's because Takumi has the power to look at from other people's perspectives, and in that moment, we were seeing from both Takumi and Suwa's perspectives, and depending on which one you were reading, it was either, you know, Takumi getting attacked and Suwa doing the damage, and Suma doing the damage. And all Takumi did was simply flip it. Just switch it out, really. Just like that, because they were so in tune with one another, and because God, Takumi really is fucking powerful if he's able. Yeah, because that makes it, because he was an artificial gigomaniac in that moment because of the Noah 2 terminal. So he was able to synchronize with Suwa without Suwa really consciously thinking about that. He was simply focused on Takumi, which actually, that proves something of another point to this power system. You do not have to consent to a mind or a delusion synchronization. You don't have to be aware of it, but it can still happen, which makes sense because of the whole the flower bed thing, which was on Takumi's part unconscious. It was an unconscious thing he created, and by creating that, everyone else accepted it instantly. You know, that's how powerful he is. Maybe the reason why that worked is because he can see, like, unconsciously see from other people's perspectives, and in that moment he placed that flower bed, he thought of that flower bed, he synchronized with other people, or maybe Elise herself as, no, that would make sense. Because we did see Elise's scene before the flower bed, right? Saw that, and from her perspective, he was able to synchronize with her, therefore creating the flower bed at the bottom of the building. So that explains that. Son of a bitch. Fuck. Okay. Alright. That was too late. If anyone was going to know where to find Noah 2, it would have been him.
Noah 2は渋谷駅のすぐ横にある。
Oh. As if she read my mind, with her eyes still aiming down at Hatano-san, at the corpse of her dead father, Senna began to murmur something.
この男が死ぬ間際に私の心に伝えてきた。渋谷駅の東口、ビルの屋上にある。今は閉鎖されたプラネタリウム。
はあ。
そこにノア2がある。
どうも。
I wasn't sure if I should have said something to her or just stay silent. She hated her father enough to want him dead. And even though her wish had come true, from what I understood, she looked miserable as could be.
くそ。私をかばって。それで罪を償ったつもりか。
Her words were targeted at her father's lifeless corpse, but he said nothing in return, and he would again.
お前は自分の罪を認めた。その上で私に見せつけるように自殺したようなものだ。許せない。私はお前を許さない。
セナさん、心が泣いてるの。本当はお父さん殺したくなかったのら。
It was just as Kuzupi said, and with those words, Senna's usual resolute demeanor disappeared. Her shoulders trembled. Heartbroken, she fell to her knees.
どうして生きて罪を償おうとしないんだ。どうして私を一人にするんだ。どうして。
セナ。
西条、お願い。
Senna raised her head. The teary expression on her face now was nothing like the stern one she always wore.
ノア2を壊して。
Suffering from a terrible grief, she spoke with the fragility of a girl who had just lost the only family she had left.
僕を殺そうとしたくせに君のお願いなんて聞く義理はないよ。
匠さん。
Turning my back towards Senna and Kazupi, I began the march down the tunnel to Shibuya Station. Before me were two giant gaping holes. A deep darkness stretched deep inside both of them. Passing through them would be the quickest way to get to Shibuya Station.
僕は僕の目的のためだけにノア2を壊す。絶対に。
I had a feeling Senna had said something after that, but I wasn't listening anymore. And this is a good stopping point here, boys. Oh, shit. Oh, this is so good. Oh, we're getting everything here. We're getting to the end. Holy shit. Damn, this really does feel like a proper ending. Like, I don't know what I was expecting, because I know there's other routes to this game. So I was expecting the first route would have, like, a bad end, I guess. It still could, obviously. But it does feel like this is a proper end to everybody's, like, character arcs as we know them for right now. Obviously, when we get into their routes, we're going to learn much more about them, which I'm excited about. But I feel like this episode is just a great example of how diverse this cast is and what makes them, like, each of them has their own things that I want to delve into. Like, I'm actually genuinely curious about what happened to Kazupi in her past. Learn more about Senna, besides her father and stuff. Nanami as well, Yua, Elise. They're all very interesting. And obviously with this first route, it's doing a damn good job of giving us like an overview of all of these characters before we really dive into them, which I think is great. Like, that's how a first route should be, of like show you all the characters, their surface level, give you just a teeny bit of intrigue, just a teeny bit, so you want to delve further into them, and also along with the main plot, obviously, which is also awesome. It's just, I really love how this game is setting itself up. Well, this is really the payoff. This ain't the setup anymore, but still, like, even this first route, it's fucking long as hell. So and probably every other route is probably going to be as long as this. Maybe. I don't know how long those routes are. But I'm excited either way, because I still feel like there's still a lot more to unpack here, and I am super excited to get to it. But yeah, if you guys have enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. If you liked it, hit the like button. Want to tell me something? Put it down in the comments below. Want to join the Discord server I hang out in, or my Twitter? Check description below. And yeah, it's been Voidlego. I'll see you guys next time. See